Their seats, we'll get started.
Guarantee I'd be waiting. Every month when that check hit, I'd be waiting right now. I pay no attention to it at all. It just comes and I go, looks out of mouth. Looks, oh, check came.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call our meeting to order, our special workshop for Tuesday, February 20th. It is 9:30. The invocation this morning will be led by Commissioner Pickens and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Adamczak, if you will. All rise if you're able to do so.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this blessed day and all the wonders in it, Father God. Guide us today as commissioners and staff, concerned citizens, Father God, and in this special board meeting that we have today. We also want to thank the members from Florida Department of Transportation for coming and the presentation that they will make. Guide and lead us in our decisions today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Pickens and Commissioner Adamczak. Do want to send out a thank you to our constitutional officer who's here today, Ms. Linda Myers. Linda, thank you for being here today. And we have Robbie Carrera, the mayor of Palaca, here today. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Freeman from the town of Pomona Park, thank you for being here today. We did reach out to all the municipalities and give them an opportunity to come if they wanted to hear something from DOT or something that we're talking about today. So this part of the agenda will take public comments on agenda items. Is there any public comment on agenda items? And seeing no one running to the podium, we'll close that. Commissioners, there's some items here that we want to talk about today, or I did, about a 3 to 5 year plan of how we can invest back into our county properties. I want to fly at a very high level altitude and then see what the appetite of the board is for our properties, our spaces of rent, our leases, things in that nature. So I'll start the conversation with, a few months ago we had a meeting, staff and I did, with a potential renter who wanted to rent some properties from us. But we really need to start looking at what we have available, what we can clean up and make available, and then put back on the market for lease and get some of these empty spots that we have, even in this area, rentable. So, for example, the Old Pantry Pride, the grocery store down here, we have a company that's interested in leasing from us. We have a department that might be interested in moving in there. But it's going to take some capital investment, and we're going to have to commit to that. And I think that's something that we should be looking at immediately, and then looking at what we want to look at 3 to 5 years on the rest of our stuff. One thing I do want to kind of add when we're talking about the investment in county properties is our old bank building that sits over here beside our supervisor of elections office. Years ago, we talked about trying to give that to Mr. Suggs. Was that the Historical Society of Putnam County?
That is correct.
And but my understanding is it's going to take way too much investment for that to be cleaned up. Is that correct?
That is correct as well.
So, what are we going to do with that? And is it time for us to make that decision of, where do we draw the line on trying to fix it up or just remove it and be done? So that's item A. So we can go ahead and have that conversation if you like and start moving these items forward. Mr. Turner, go right ahead. Let's be kind of informal. It is a workshop. So let's just have open discussion if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree with anything that you just said, but whatever we do needs to make some kind of business sense as we go. It can't just be that we throw money at a building hoping somebody will rent it later on. I think that's been part of the issue before, is that a lot of the spaces that we have will take some investment to make them run. Well, usually in the private world, as you know as well as I do, that the that you furnish them a good solid envelope, good roof, walls, good, and then they come in and do their own build out as part of the rent, and then you give them a long-term lease to help offset some of that. So, you know, if I think that if we could get something like that done, it would be very well. But as far as going next door and putting $500,000 of the county's money in that, where we could get $3,000 a month rent or $10,000 a month rent, I have a lot of issues with that, because it'll take us so long to recapture the investment that we put in there with the tax dollars. So I really don't mind doing some of this, but it needs to make the same sense with the government that it would make with private, if it was a private investment going forward. So that would be my only comment, is that we just need to make sure that we're as frugal with the taxpayers' dollars as we would be if this was our money that we were putting in there personally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Commissioner Turner just said as well. One other thing that I think we need to talk about at some point, and we've talked about a little bit in the past, but with the coming of the Port Authority, as far as it becoming a real port and a real entity, I think we need to start looking at, I know we talked about the Sheriff's Department stuff, pulling that out of the Port Authority into the county, but any parks or other assets that really have nothing to do with the Port Authority or economic development from that perspective, I think we need to start looking into pulling them into the county as well, to separate them from the Port Authority. Because once the port's super active, there are, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, so there are, I think it'll become an accounting mess for staff and for us to try to figure out, if we start actually taking in funds from the port and it becomes a regular business, as far as managing when we do outlays to properties like the Triangle Park and other things, I think that could confuse things and cause some issues for us in future commissions down the road once the port's active, solvent, and we're taking in funds and we're spending funds. And I think we really got to look into segregating the Port Authority completely from the county, like it's written in the rules, and just to alleviate any thoughts of, you know, confusing monies or Parks and Rec, and just for us in future commissions, and just continue down that path like we already are.
Good. Mr. Turner?
Yes, and I totally agree with that statement as far as trying to isolate the two. And the biggest thing is the level of immunity that the county is afforded that the port is not. I don't think that the Port Authority has the same level of sovereign immunity as the county does as a government. So, you know, I'm no attorney, but that would be a Mr. Commando question, but I'm pretty sure that they don't have the same level. And if that's the case, then we definitely need to bring those port properties underneath the county umbrella, if nothing else, just for liability and sovereign immunity, the level of sovereign immunity. And for the same reason Commissioner Adams' Act just came up with too, that it's going to be harder as time goes by, if the port becomes successful like we're hoping it will, to keep those separate. And I don't know how much we need to start putting income or revenues from the port into the parks and into the whatever, unless we pay in a different direction, in a different way. But mostly the level of liability is a lot different from the port to the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments on that? On how we move those properties around a little?
No, we've had some discussion earlier about some of these issues, and we need to look at the funding mechanisms and the bonding issues and things of that nature before we move forward with that conversation any further. But those are things that we've certainly have been looking at, and we'll continue to work through the Honorable Matt Reynolds' office on some of those issues as well. We absolutely agree, or I do as a county administrator, that we need to start looking at separation of those properties out from underneath the Port Authority, for the simple reason, you're correct, and when we start that port up and it becomes a valuable asset, we need to make sure it's as protected as it can be. Absolutely.
If you don't mind, I'll just add
go right ahead.
a little bit. And if there is properties that make sense that are owned by the county for them to be to the port, maybe there's a way to trade them off and things like that. Because remember, the Port Authority isn't just about the seaport; it could be about land. So if we have something like on 20 in West Putnam or somewhere down towards Crescent City, where it could be a landing spot for something that comes into the port, goes out to there, things like that, or just even out towards, like we bought the GP property, other opportunities like that, that may make sense to do swaps and other things where the port may be the better owner for a piece of property, that might be valid as well.
Mr. Chairman, and that's kind of where I thought the conversation was going, so we'll absolutely look at it in with that perspective moving forward on it.
And then from the little building out front, I know we stayed away from doing anything to it, but did we do the roof on it? That was one thing that had come up is, I mean, under what you were saying, one thing that we may want to do to preserve the building, if that's our intent, not to knock it down, would be to at least do the roof on that small building out front, the bank building, whatever that was. I think we were looking to lease for an organization that I belong to, some property, and with the rents, I think if we got a roof on there, there may be takers that would, like you're saying, redo the property and utilize it for a store or a restaurant or something, possibly through a lease. But currently, the roof is probably our responsibility, even under the traditional means.
Thank you. Julianne, I want to bring you into the conversation on the potential person we met with about leasing some of that property. Mr. Turner made a very good point, and I believe that was their recommendation too, that they wanted to be involved in the build-out part of that, if I'm not mistaken. So could you elaborate on that just a little?
Yeah, so we've had tenants request everything from us do the build-out to them take on the build-out for some sort of exchange or long-term lease. And so certainly there is various ways that it can be customized. Some entities want to be able to customize the building to exactly their needs, and they have the capital to upfront to do that, or the expertise, one of the two. In some of our buildings, those repairs would be substantial. Some of them are essentially gutted, and others of them have some mitigation that would have to be done to make them safe for occupancy. So I believe it's going to be a case-by-case basis on each scenario, as well as a case-by-case basis with each potential lessor who may want to entertain some sort of agreement with us. I don't know that there's a one solution to all.
So let me call on Mr. Pickens, and I'll come back to you. But I really want to ask you, where do you see us going now? I know we all talk about eating the elephant one bite at a time, and this is a lot to throw onto staff and time constraints and all. Mm-hmm. But maybe we start with this complex first and then start working our way out. And maybe the board then says, well, the bank building has a floor problem along with a roof problem, and it's not worth fooling with. But maybe these buildings down there just need X amount of dollars, and this potential tenant wants to spend. I think we just need to take little bites. Again, I opened the conversation with a 3 to 5 year plan, to know where we're trying to get to. But I think it's time that we do look at that, because we have a potential person who's very much interested in being in that building. And, we have, God knows we have plenty of parking, so that's not an issue here. So, okay. So why don't you think along those lines, and then we'll go to Commissioner Pickens.
I think that's leading to where my question or comment was, do we have an up-to-date inventory of the buildings that we have, and then the conditions that they are in, and then like the A&P, I guess, grocery store where you worked, Larry?
Pantry Pride.
Pantry Pride?
Yes, sir.
If it's 10,000 square feet, is it possible to split it into, to 2 5s or 2,500s or something like that? And see what needs to be done to these buildings, and then maybe, market them to just put it out there to some of the realtors and things like that they're possible for rent. Would there ever be any zoning issues? And I would laugh at that, is of what could go in some of these buildings. Would it have to come before us to rezone? Say if somebody wanted to put some light manufacturing in one of the buildings and it didn't fit that, so that would have to go through the zoning process also?
That would go through the city of Palatka, because we're in the municipal boundaries of the city. So the city's zoning would take precedence as to allowable uses.
Okay, we don't have any outside Any
We,
buildings outside
we
the
have
city?
some buildings outside the municipal boundaries, but nothing in this complex that's being discussed.
Okay. Well, that's why I think we need to try to get, if it's not too expensive, get a list of what we have and, square footages and things like that, and maybe some of the improvements that would need to be made that the tenant would be responsible for, and then see about either a build out or we build it out and then, do the rent concessions or something like that.
I completely agree. I think the first deal is just to get a list of the properties that we own that are not currently being utilized. And then we need to, in my opinion, I think we need to start with doing some kind of an assessment on the building. Is it worth trying to save or not? I'm not saying any are or aren't. I'm just saying if we should be trying to save it. And then that's where we need to be putting our money, is on things, on our buildings that have a future lifespan left in them, but they're going down because the roof's bad or the wall's cracked or a window's broken out of it or things like that, and get the envelopes of the buildings fixed back up. If one of them's full of asbestos, or if one of them's full of mold, or if one of them's full of something that's going to prevent somebody from coming in and leasing them, that's where we need to be focusing on, is trying to get them in a condition that they are rentable. And then, just like Commissioner Pickens said, some of these bigger spaces, they could have a demising wall built down them and separated the spaces or whatever, but we'd be foolish to go in there and do it before we found out what was going in there, because somebody might want 10,000 feet, and then we just build a wall and they got to go tear it down. We could be willing to put a wall that splits the things up. It's not a big deal, but we need to kind of find out how much space they need, and and what they're willing to do, and if it's a long-term lease, and if they're going to participate in the build-out. So some of these buildings are going to be a lot easier than others. I just don't know what kind of condition the bank building's in up there on the corner. It's leaked for years and years and years. I just don't know I haven't been in it, don't know. So that would be, I think Commissioner Pickens hit the nail on the head we need a list first.
Right.
And what it would take in the opinion to at least get the building secured, or in the opinion of our building official or somebody like that, if we found one, is it even worth trying to save? Because if it costs $1 million to fix up a $200,000 building, that doesn't make walking around sense, people. And so, those are the kind of decisions that need to be made as we go along with this. And Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to request this in a week. I mean, this is going to take them months to try and figure out what's going on. So I would like to see it sometime in the next few months, a list of some kind, at least what we got and kind of what you think might need to be done. Not maybe a full-blown assessment of the building, but maybe just some comments on, we know this one's leaking bad, or we know this one, the doors are blew out of it and the windows, and, just a mile-high assessment of the property or something.
I agree. And I think that we could start right here in our own backyard and work our way out. But staff's going to need some direction. Ms. Wilkinson, did you have some comment?
My comments was the same. I definitely think we need an inventory of buildings. I was sitting here thinking that I was the only one who didn't know what they were, because I was the newest commissioner. So, no, an inventory of buildings, and then maybe, like Commissioner Turner and Pickens said, I call it a 4-point inspection with the main 4, roof, electricity, water, and HVAC, what's viable.
And it's important to also, when we look at that, what is the county space? What do we need to be? What are some of our departments that are suffering right now? Go ahead, Mr. Suggs, you had a comment?
Yeah, I can absolutely wait till you finish with that one,
No,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman, because that absolutely led to my comment.
Go right ahead.
And I see you got it on the agenda for items C and D, but while we're having this conversation, I think part of what staff is going to be looking for, as well, is when we bring back an inventory for you 5 to look at and understand where we're at with our infrastructure. One of the things that I would like for us to certainly consider putting a prioritized list together on is those conditions that staff is currently working in as well. I understand we've got vacancies here within the government complex that if we trim them out, build them out, whatever day will come. However, we got folks showing up every day that we need to look at as well. So when we start prioritizing dollars to do renovations, I'd like for us to look at that as well.
I don't disagree with that at all, Administrator Suggs, but I think it needs to be two separate lists, or it's gonna get so massive that everything gets lost in the shuffle. I think you need to have a list of things, and you kinda already know what they are, because we've been addressing some of these as we've gone along, as far as the spaces that we now occupy and things that we need to do to make them better, and I see it coming on the list in a minute, to discuss it, but I think it's two separate subjects altogether. One of them is buildings that we own that are vacant. And even buildings like the new one we bought out at the GP property out there. I know that I've been gonna get with Sam and go out and look at it, but I just haven't had time to that we could both fit this in and get it done, but I'm still planning on trying to get it done, but that's a good example. That's a pretty large building. I don't know what kind of shape it is inside. If it's leaking, we need to fix it. If it's not leaking, then we need to see about getting it leased, because it's gonna be, best I can tell, years before that building is needed for some type of a port authority process or business at the port. And so it doesn't need to just sit there and go downhill.
That's right.
We can do, before we start spending money on the 4 points, I don't disagree with what Commissioner Wilkinson said. I think we need to at least have a mile-high assessment of what the building is, and we've got people next door that if they can find time, they can go assess the building and at least tell us, is it worth moving forward, or if it's not, or whatever, and then possibly a 4 point at that point would be good, because they cost money. And so you go get a 4 point done on it, unless we have somebody next door. I'm sure one of our building officials or one of the inspectors has the licenses and abilities to go do a 4 point.
And I would be good with that.
And it might be, and if we can, and they can find the time, then maybe they can start hitting one here and there, the ones that are the most leasable or the ones that are in the best shape, and maybe we can. And I think Commissioner Pickens hit the nail on the head most of all. We need to, once we get these buildings assessed and we know what level of rentability, for lack of a better word, that we have there, we need to get a realtor involved in this thing, because right now, nobody knows what we've got available. Nobody knows how much it would be. Nobody knows anything. We need to do I think we need to do an RFQ on, like you would an architect or an engineer or something. You do an RFP or QP, and let's see if we can't get a realtor involved that would take some of these properties that we're not going to be using and actually put them out, and let's start trying to get revenues out of them. So I think step one is going to be compile a list. Step two is going to be an assessment on the different buildings, and then what it would take to get them into a rentable condition. I don't mean build out and all, just the envelope and the thing that we should be normally responsible for. And then the next thing would be, I believe we need to have a realtor, and we need to let that realtor go out and lease the buildings. And if it's too much of a burden, because it is time consuming to be a rental person or whatever, it may be that instead of hiring and just assigning that to somebody in Putnam County who has already got their plate full, we might need to get one of the property management realtors. There's multiple ones around that are very good at it, that we could just let them manage the property for us too, and collect the rents and go out and check on the property, just like they would if it was a private property. They earn their money. Yeah. They earn every dime of it. And so I think that's the way we ultimately need to go, but I think that's down the road just a little bit. I think the first thing is the list, the assessment, and then see where we go, and then get a realtor.
All right, so I see DOT's in the room, but can we agree maybe to start right here in our complex and work out? And maybe, Sam, since you're port manager right now, maybe the facilities that you manage under the port, I can't tell you that, but I think staff, would you be in agreement that that's kind of a low-hanging fruit right now? I mean, that's not a big one. But again, I'm with Commissioner Turner. We got a building out there at the port that we bought. I think we do know the roof leaks there. Looks to be like it's doing that, but we don't know that for sure, so.
And the port's got the other building over there too. I don't think it's been rented out either yet. And so, I mean, you know, that could be a separate list, the port from the county,
Sure.
because I don't know that we would want, I mean, that'll be a discussion for later on. Do we actually want a realtor to manage our port, or do we want to there's only a couple of buildings in the port, it could be we do that, but we need to actively go out and find tenants for them instead of just sitting there until somebody figures out we have a building available and it not get rented.
But along with those lines, you know, we bought that property. We do need to make sure it's rentable one day.
Absolutely.
And it might not, I agree with you, it might not need a realtor right now, but we need to be ready.
Absolutely.
We need to be ready, and we need to say, yeah, it's a dried-in building, and here we go, we can rent this thing out. So DOT, we're going to wait just a few minutes, if you don't mind, because we do have a 10 o'clock certain for you. But I think that takes care of item A. Staff, is there any questions concerning that? I think we'll start here in the complex with availability and the buildings that we do have available, and then we'll work ourselves out from that point. And anything I can do in my district that you might, because again, Commissioner Wilkinson, you're right, I found out a building I didn't know we owned until just a few weeks ago. So yeah, I think it is time to bring that in for a landing as much as possible. And we've done a lot of good things over the years, and this will be one of the
Chairman,
good
I'd
ones
like to
too.
make one more statement.
Yes, sir.
As far as what I was talking about for other areas of the county, obviously on the main road, but also if it was connected to the rail, because that's going to be important from a Port Authority perspective as well, and I think Sam understands that as well. But I just wanted to make sure I put that out there too. That's what I was visualizing. If there's a location where we have a piece of property, even if it doesn't have a building on it, where it's next to a major highway or the rail or both would be obviously the greatest of all. So that's just what I was talking about. I just wanted to add that to it because I didn't think of rail when I said it.
And I'm glad you said that, because we, you know, currently before we surplus property, we look at it to see if there's a value in our neighborhoods that might need it for drainage, for roads, for improvements in that manner. So I think it's important the public knows we do look at these things, you know, but we're just, a lot of times we get a lot of property is sheeted to us. We get property that people want to give us, you know, and sometimes we say, no, we don't have a use for it, but there might be other times that we had a property manager, for example, we might find a use for it. So, all right, moving on to item B. As you well know, the building got painted by a contractor, and the sidewalks didn't make it through that process that good. So we're going to be looking at painting that. JR, you've talked to me about using the inmate crew to paint the sidewalks. And we've already went to the paint supplier and talked to them. But would you elaborate on that just a little?
Yeah, we just had a turnover and change from our inmate supervisor. So now that we're able to go get inmates again, I think that is absolutely a possibility. Okay. As a matter of fact, we've been talking with the sheriff's office about allowing, I think it's this Friday, some more of our employees are actually going to go to inmate supervisor school and be able to use some of the labor from our local jail facility. So I think that's absolutely possible. I think some of the folks from another department have picked out the colors or whatever that was matched the building, but I think that's an absolute possibility, using some inmate labor to try to get the government complex finished.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Well, I totally agree we need to use inmates for things we can do to save money on. I think we need to be very wary of using inmate labor for issues that require a quality of work that's going to be done. I don't know that they have the same quality level as what you would get from a private contractor. And I know you pay a little more for it, I get it. But, you know, sometimes you can find a shade tree mechanic to fix your car and it works out all right, but if you pay him in advance and the car's not fixed, it might be a little more difficult to get him to come back and fix your car again. So I'm just saying that I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that right here in front of our main county building, that we might want a little bit of quality to be involved in the process instead of just somebody that can slap paint on the ground, that doesn't care if bubble gum's down there that they're gonna paint over, or that the surface might need some preparation in areas or what have you. They're just gonna slap some paint on it like they're told to do. So I think that I appreciate the fact that we're trying to save money, I truly do, but I don't know that inmate labor is the proper thing to use for every project we have. So,
I appreciate that. That's, Mr. Adams, you had a comment?
Well, on this particular project, we did hire a contractor, and I think the inmates would have done a better job. So it is what it is. But on this, I don't have a problem with inmates doing for what we're talking about where they miss painting and painting the sidewalks and stuff. I don't think that's quite as precise as a roof or something like that. But I love that you're thinking outside the box. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, the contractor we had didn't do a good job. And I think that's probably where our minds got to this other idea. So, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Actually, my first idea was civic groups. Maybe you got your Kiwanis or your Rotary or your Girl Scout, Boy Scouts, whatever, but that seemed to get, some of my ideas don't seem to, after they percolate, aren't such a great idea after a while. I could just see disaster all over some of that. So, but that leads me to the next thing, and the next thing is signage. I kind of noticed one day driving in, and I appreciate all what General Services has done. If you notice, the yellow's been painted out there, yellow boxes under the lights. They've been really working hard to clean up. The tree out front was really nice to get it's nice to start getting things done. But what we're missing out there is we're missing signs, our logo, okay, out in front of the building here, in front of planning and zoning, and I could see one over by supervisor of elections. I could even see signs that say, this is where you're going, this is supervisor election, this is planning, I could see that. But I think if we're going, and out there on the front, way out there by the Krill Avenue, put our logo, our county logo out there on that sign. It would look very attractive. It wouldn't cost that much money.
could we find out how much it does cost and then have the thing? Because if we're talking about a few $1,000s, I don't think it's a big deal, but if we're talking about 100, we might have to cut down a little bit on the amount of them signs you want to put up.
I think really all I'm looking for is about 3 signs on the building and 2 signs out front. But again, it takes the board to make that recommendation to staff. We don't want to take staff's time away. So I'm fine with that.
Well, in many situations, the board in the past have turned a certain project over to a commissioner with the authority to look at it and work at it and then bring it back to the board for what they actually need with a recommendation. Could we just ask that you get with staff and tell them what you have visualized in your mind, and then maybe they can get pricing on that and bring it back to the board?
I would be glad to if the board allows. Yeah. All right, good. That cleans up item B. So now we're at 10:03, and FDOT, Jamie and your group, please come down and bring all your folks with us and introduce everybody, and we look forward to your presentation.
Absolutely.
And thank you for driving from Lake City to here today. If you will introduce yourself.
Yeah, which what I may do, and I'll introduce myself, and I'll kind of give you the perspective of the approach for today. My name is Jamie Driggers. I work with DOT, and I'm the Planning and Environmental Management Engineer for the district. For perspective, we cover 18 counties. Mm-hmm. And as you can imagine, 18 counties, you really get thin. So the approach of today, and I'll say this, the early part of my career, we did a lot of engagement. We used to come in the spring and we'd come in the fall, and unfortunately with COVID, it kind of set things out of balance. So I'm trying to get us back into that motion of making ourselves accessible. So today is kind of my mark of, we wanted to give you all an update on some different items that we're working on, and also make this an opportunity. If there are other things that we haven't considered or that we need to take a deeper dive into, we can absolutely do that and come back with updates. So with me today, I've got a few folks, and I'm going to let them present on their projects. Once again, this is succession planning, thinking about the opportunity tomorrow. You can go to all the training in the world about presenting, but getting up in front of a commission is a whole different perspective. And so with that, the first one we're going to talk about, we want to give you all an update on Krill Avenue. Mr. Justin Garland is going to talk a little bit about the project.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Jamie.
Good morning. So I'm Justin Garland. I'm with FTOT. I'm a project development engineer. So Krill Avenue, this is a project that we've had a lot of concern about from the public and even the city. There's a lot of traffic that uses State Road 20 to go out to US 17. And right now, a lot of traffic's actually cutting through Krill, which is kind of a neighborhood area. And so we've looked at drawing up a concept to kind of close Krill Avenue, and I'll show that right here. So back in October, we looked at, drawing up this concept to close Krill. Our thought process is
Can I
that we
stop you for just a minute?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, have y'all seen this? Okay, if you'd like to sit up here where you could see it, you're more than welcome to do that. I didn't want you not to be able
Yeah,
to.
maybe there's
Okay.
a better spot to put it. Yeah, but anyway,
Don't
so
turn
we,
it too much. Bring it back, just, there you go, right there. That's-
Have it right there.
Yeah, we're good.
so we've spent the last few months drawing up this concept to close off Krill. Basically, what we're hoping for is that, traffic will stay on State Road 20, go up to US 17 and make the right there to basically cross Memorial Bridge. But that's our concept. We just got survey yesterday, so we're looking at designing it now. We'll take it to the public for a public access management change meeting. Targeting summer is what we're looking for, and we'll send out flyers and let the community know that's going to happen. We also took it to Palatka City Council CRA meeting and presented it there and showed them we had positive feedback at that meeting. So that's really where we're at with Krill right now. And I'll take any questions if you guys have any.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to make a comment. And it's good to see the Mayor of Palatka, Jamie Watts, is in the room today. Thank you for being here. Mayor, not to throw you off base or anything, but I was presented this maybe a month ago and looked at this. There are two roads to the north.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The first road, if you shut that down, in my opinion, and I'm not a road builder, they're just going to go to that next road and turn right, and it's still going to have a bottleneck. But if you go up to the second road, which is where the ball field is and the old school administration, I think that'll give them a straight shot back down to the river. But I think if you're going to do that in that intersection, you need to look at that next road also and shut that one down, because it's going to make for a bad intersection right there. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Yes, sir. No, we've heard that concern. We're still looking into that. And I think there is some part of a phased approach here. If you close Krill, then, obviously, people may find a different route, and then that would be something that we'd have to reconsider.
Well, I will tell you, since I've seen this, I have been trying not to go straight down to the river to get myself used to that. It's not bad to do that. It takes you into Palatka, downtown, basically to St. John's, and then you can make a decision if you want to go right, left, or straight. So, it's more convenient for me to go to the river. It's a nice scenic drive, but I understand that is a very, it's hard to get in and out of there right now.
Yes, sir.
But
Yep.
in all fairness, since I saw this at the CRA meeting, I think that once you get people around the corner, I think that most of them will just go right on out to the 4-lane on Reed Street. I really do. There might be a few of them that turn down on the next street over and go towards the river, but I think that once you make it where they can't go straight off the corner and then turn right to the river, I really believe that once they get around that corner, they'll just go right on up. So I think this will quieten the traffic on the neighborhood, and I think that's what the city is shooting for, is to quiet the through traffic in that neighborhood. And so I think this will really help accomplish that a lot. I find myself driving down it every single day, coming from town to go back to the house in San Mateo. But I really believe that if somebody made me go around the corner, that I wouldn't turn right and go to the river. I'd just go on out to the road and turn right again. I think about it every time I drive through there or through it or whatever, that I think once you're around the corner, you'll just go on out to the light. So,
Mr. Adams, you had your light on? No, I was just going. Oh, okay.
Yes,
Is there
sir.
any
That's
other
our goal.
Staff, do you have anything?
Is this going to, I know we've been discussing it for years about the semi traffic that's still continuing down Krill Avenue that becomes an issue on everybody's minds, that we're that semi trying to turn right onto Reed Street. I know there's probably not a lot of semis that are traveling this, but I mean, if we're going to deal with this intersection, I think it's about time we deal with the whole thing and not just the one small portion of it.
I think that's what they're going to do next, right? I think we have that in, yes, sir.
And of course, that's probably the question, why are we showing this
Right.
concept to the county, when this is a city issue? It's not just a city issue. There's also a parallel for this happening right now. We're doing enhanced signage. We have a dedicated truck route. It's not being utilized to the full extent, so we are going to use educational opportunities. And when I say educational.
Jamie, can I get you to talk in the microphone?
Yep. So when I say educational opportunities, it's creating awareness of the dedicated truck route and trying to encourage utilization. We've done the enhanced signage plan. That is imminent. Signs are being fabricated as we speak. More or less, we're doing a pilot opportunity. We're going to try to enhance signage. We're going to walk ourselves into it. We don't want to go the extreme solution, but walk ourselves in. We're also, why are we talking to the county? We want to do an educational campaign through social media, through outreach in that manner to draw interest of the opportunity. So we're going to do that as well. And then another thing that we're piloting that's very unique is we're working with truck wayfinding apps. A lot of these drivers are not locally sourced, so they're passing through, and the current wayfinding app directs you to the quickest path. So by default of length, it's going to take you that way. But what we're trying to do is get these truck vendors to actually direct as a prioritization to a dedicated truck route. It is the most conducive. The turning movements, the vertical clearance, all of those things are better suited for a truck. So absolutely recognize the grander. We're going to walk ourselves in with kind of a two-part, this in addition to that outreach, and then we're going to monitor and we'll see how it goes. And then there's ultimately, there's other solutions that we can explore, but we want to, if we can do it through the educational, it's lower cost, higher return on investment, and then we'll just monitor, see what we need to do for the future.
Mr. Triggers, Commissioner Wilkinson tried to hit her button, but it's not working, so she's.
Thank you, Jamie, for bringing this up and coming and doing this presentation. I know Rep. Payne has been working on this semi-truck traffic issue on Krill since he's been in office, and I remember meeting with you guys when I worked with him. The signage, I think, is going to make a huge difference. The issue hasn't been that we don't have a truck route. The issue has been the fact that, what you just said, the truckers continue to go on through the shortest route. And this signage, from what I understand, is going to be huge.
Yes.
Like physically
Four by 7.
4 by 7, you're having them specially made. And the wayfinding, that's going to make a big difference too. So thank you for doing that, because it's a continuing issue that's with this truck traffic going down through a residential area, and it's just because that's the way the road goes. But once you pass Palm Avenue, unless somebody's delivering, they really shouldn't be down there. We had met early on with some law enforcement and local law enforcement, and they said they couldn't enforce anything because it was a state road. And so this will at least, I think, take care of some of that. So I really appreciate y'all doing that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Turner.
Jamie, I know this is a city issue mostly, but I truly believe that once you divert the traffic like you're trying to do and get it around the corner and keep it on Creel or 20, that you're going to completely blow up the intersection at Reed Street and Creel Avenue, because you're going to double the amount of traffic that goes on. I believe that. I think that as part of this project, or something you seriously need to consider, is 3-laning the road up there where between St. John's Avenue and Reed Street when you're going out towards 17. And the reason I'm saying that is somebody right now, if you want to turn left or you want to go straight, that intersection sometimes already backs up all the way down to the park. That's how far it gets. And so, but if you had a 3-lane there, to where if somebody wanted to turn left or go straight, or somebody could just go on the right lane, then they could make turns on red, they could do whatever. I think that it would really help eliminate the traffic there if you just could add one additional lane going out right between those two roads, where you could, one person wanting to turn left doesn't just blow that intersection up for 20 minutes. So I think that's something that seriously needed to be looked at when we're going to divert this amount of traffic off of going towards the river up to that intersection. I truly believe that you need to look at some traffic calming in that intersection right there, and just an extra lane, I think, would take care of that turning traffic or the stuff that wanted to go left or straight that blocks that intersection.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it, sure.
I know we received a map. Did you have a map to put up here as far as the truck traffic route and the new signage? I don't want to get ahead of us.
We didn't plot a board, but everything we present today we'll provide electronically.
Okay.
You could post it on your website or however you want to disperse, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Well, I don't believe the truck traffic, while it is an issue for sure, and I don't think that's what's blocking that up. I think that it's mainly just cars and vehicles that want to turn left or go straight there at that intersection is what's blocking it up more so than semis are.
Yeah, but then you have the additional problem of the trucks that are going through down to
Well,
Dairy Queen.
absolutely. I'm not saying that it's a wonderful, they're going to try to get the truck route back working again. That's all wonderful. But I'm saying that where they're fixing to double the traffic, the car traffic on that intersection, because if you just pay attention to how many people do go straight off Krill towards the river, every one of them, I bet you, with the exception of one or two here and there that turn right at the next
Down the
block,
Reed.
all the rest of them are going to go right out to that intersection, and it's going to just jam that intersection up. It gets jammed up now. To be honest with you, that's why I don't go that way, is because even at the current levels, if you go around the corner, a lot of times traffic's backed up all the way across St. John's Avenue, and it takes you a while to get across. You end up turning right and going into somewhere to get around it. So it's going to really be a lot worse whenever we divert this much traffic onto that intersection, so.
Mr. Adams, yeah.
I was just going to add my support for that at that light, even if you had a right turn lane and a left turn lane, because just like he just said, he added to what he said before. When you come up to the light that we have, or that the city has on St. John's, or you guys have on St. John's, a lot of times you'll be at that light and you can't go forward because the traffic hasn't evacuated that short stretch between St. John's and the main road. So I absolutely support that. If that's anything we could do, that would be almost as important as blocking off the neighborhood from a flow perspective, because you are going to double up. And I'm one of the people that's guilty of cutting through that neighborhood. But it also gets me downtown a lot too, though. So it's from Robbie, from your perspective, that's a catch-22, because a lot of times I cut down there and I'm like, well, I'm down here. I get to where the brewery thing is. I turn left and I go down to some shop because I have an extra 10 minutes. Where if I cut down to the main road, I'm just going to bypass downtown. So there's that, and I don't know how much that's been talked about, but just want to add my support for what Commissioner Turner said as far as that intersection.
Well, the idea of this, it seems to me like, is to calm traffic in the area to keep it from going straight, which is probably a pretty good idea. But if it's just going to make it so bad at the intersection up at 17 Reed Street, then you're going to turn anyhow. You're going to force these people to turn back into that neighborhood and just go that direction and down to the river anyhow, because they're going to have a long wait if they go straight out to out Creel.
And maybe long-term, that is where it benefits the businesses on St. John's, is it forces them to turn down St. John's. I mean, that is a net win possibly, if we were able in the future to block off those other roads.
Well, if you can even
Approaching
make
St.
it to
John's.
St. John's, it may be that you have to turn by the ballpark or one of them.
But I think we're talking about in the
Traffic's
future,
all the way back, yeah.
they may block that off too to protect that neighborhood, and that with the school going there, other things that might be
You got to let
not the
somebody
worst
get
idea.
to their house somehow or another along that street without driving a mile out of the way to get home.
I'm assuming they're the ones requesting the calm down, so.
I think that's the key, is we don't want to bypass, but we sure do want to make this community better. Mr. J.R. Grimes, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to switch hats for a second, because a lot of times our ambulances are coming down Krill Avenue headed back south. And because that is the major thoroughfare, they take 9th Street coming from the south end or the East Putnam area. They're using that section of Krill Avenue. And what this will do is delay those units returning south, because they have to drive all the way down to Reed Street now to get back south, which the way the city's kind of shaped, it will cause a delay, but I just want to be cognizant of that. And I think when we go into renaming these roads and emergency services access into that portion of the community is now going to be a little bit different, because when I worked for the city, Morris Street was the fastest way for us to get to off of River Street from the downtown fire station. We used it very frequently to go to the art facility off of South 10th. And I think you're causing yourself some major thoroughfare changes there that aren't anticipated from an overall look. That sometimes your emergency services do use these access routes to get to specific areas of the neighborhood from their location where they currently are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, Mr. Justin Fairman's going to come up and give you all an update on US 17 at Seminole Access Road.
Yeah.
I wanted to illustrate what we're currently proposing and just kind of give you all a status of that project.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I want to tell you about Seminole Electric intersection on US 17. In particular, so sort of a background. So we've been having engagements with the business entities using that entrance, mostly Certainteed and Cypress. So through those engagements, we have come up with various concepts, such as shift the alignment west for US 17, as well as this acceleration lane concept. So this we consider an interim concept, and so with this, we're proposing a 1,400-foot acceleration lane. And what this will allow is for trucks to sort of help decrease the near misses on US 17. And so essentially, the truck driver will be able to have space to get onto southbound US 17 and get up to speed properly without having any unsafe hesitation. And then we're also proposing signage improvements at the crossing itself and pavement markings. And so essentially that will allow the truckers to know, better define where they should stop in relation to the rail crossing. And so that is the concept on itself. Do you have any questions about it?
I don't, but
Mr. Chairman, can I ask
yes,
one
please,
question?
Mr. Grimes.
Is there any considerations for the semi not being able to pull out of Certainty with the distance? Are we going to extend that road that comes out? There's not enough distance for a semi between the stop sign and the railroad tracks. Once that semi comes across, about one time a year, we do run a vehicle or a semi truck versus a train. Is there any consideration to bringing out the road, the approach to 17 from the two facilities to accommodate a semi?
So not with this concept. So shifting the alignment west on US 17 will fulfill that. But, and the reason why we had this concept is because this is something we can get on the ground in a few years. Whereas shifting the alignment US 17, it may be probably 10 years further down the line. So,
And we are through restriping, we are going to provide some additional space, but we're, in the grandeur, we still, and to put this in perspective, this is a private rail crossing, so DOT's limited on our ability to actually make improvements, which is why
Jamie,
we've got a strong relationship.
we're going to have you talk in the
Yeah, I'm
micro,
sorry.
or I'm going to get you.
I'm sorry.
Can we get a cordless mic for Jamie since he's not going to comply? No,
So we're trying to maximize the opportunity, and obviously DOT, I mean, we see the risk here. We've had 2 Amtrak trains hit trucks. We've had a lot of near-miss opportunities, and we're just trying to stay ahead of it. So we're trying to maximize through a restriping plan improvements that provide some additional, offset. But the grander improvement for us is to make this acceleration lane improvement just to prevent that brake tap where there's the confidence for a driver to continue to move. We expect there to be a follow-up project with Certainteed Seminole as a direct delivery for that private rail crossing, and that would be a companion job. As Justin introduced, we do have an ultimate concept that would shift the road, but it's $15-20 million. In practicality, this is a higher return on investment, so we're trying to address the now safety need. But we'll continue to look at that grander solution as well.
How much room is there between the road and the railroad track? Is that one semi, Mr. Grimes, or is that 2 semis?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear your full
Between
question.
17 and the railroad track, how many semis can sit out, get on the west side of that railroad track?
And
Not even a whole one. The
Not even.
tail sticks onto the railroad, which has become the issue.
yeah, because I think it's about probably 70 feet, and I think a truck needs about 75, if I'm correct. So a portion does take over the rail if it stops fully up to the edge of travel.
And just, if I could, that's an acceleration lane going north or coming south on
Going
17?
south. It'll be a acceleration lane going south. So
Okay.
they would still have to cross the northbound travel, but once they're on,
Put your microphone up to you.
once the
No.
Hello?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, so they still would have to cross the northbound travel, but then once they get in the median, they're able to get into that lane and get up to speed without having to worry about any conflict points with the southbound traffic as of yet. Till
So they can keep moving, it keeps the flow going.
Yeah, that's
They
exactly.
got it.
I think I'm with Mr. Grimes. If we don't solve that, I didn't know that there was an issue between the railroad track and the,
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of this, they've had those issues right there at that intersection with the railroad, with the trucks being hit. There's not enough room.
is there painting that can be done, or?
Yeah, this concept proposes a restripe to push the trucks, the bumper of the truck closer to 17 with enough offset to be safe, but it does enhance it, but it doesn't totally eliminate. We're also working with CSX and, of course, Certainty to looking at opportunities for potentially actuated signs that if there is a train coming, it would actuate and alert the driver that you need to clear the tracks. So we're working that in hand as well to this alternative, which sounds like everything's working favorably.
Because in that scenario, the flashing sign will basically replace the 60-feet sign here.
Okay, I see that, 60 feet between tracks and highway.
And the ask of the commission today is, of course, we handle, we address resurfacing projects, different types of projects. This one is unique in the sense of the way we're trying to fund it. The funding we're looking at, it wouldn't be a competing interest with the county, but we would like today, if the county agrees and supports us moving forward, to at least provide concurrence for us to pursue funding opportunities to bring the project to life. We would ask for that today for consideration.
Well, I truly believe that any improvements to that area is better than no improvements at all. So I'm going to give you my blessing to move forward.
Appreciate that.
So will you need a letter of support from us moving this project along? Is that what you're looking?
It would be appreciated.
It would be,
Or it could just be a consent today of the board, and we can use that as our position to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I know we don't usually take motions at workshops, but I'd be willing to, on this particular instance, to make a motion that we give them that letter of support that they're seeking.
Second.
proper motion, proper second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. We'll draw that letter up, and if you'll get with our staff and let them know what you need in the body of the letter, and I'll sign it for you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jamie, and your team for at least trying to do everything you can right now. I know
Absolutely.
there's a long-term goal, but thank you for doing what you're doing.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Justin. Next up, we have Mr. David Tyler. I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate y'all coming. I really do. I know a lot of projects are happening in Putnam County, and it's exciting to see.
We appreciate being here, honestly. We have a lot of work, and we do a lot of coordination. Sorry we're a little bit late. We did take State Road 100 through here, so somebody should widen that, I know.
So you drove 100?
We did,
Oh,
yes. We got stuck behind
good.
a
Take it
truck.
back.
We felt your pain, so. But anyway, yeah, we do have a lot of projects in Putnam County, and so the one I'm here today to talk about, I don't have a nice picture. I'm a little less armed here. Is the State Road 100 at County Road 315 intersection in Grandin. And I know you're all familiar with this. We know it's a priority, so we definitely wanted to touch base, tell you that we're still looking at it, still working on it. Our traffic ops team, our safety team have already come up with a roundabout concept, and I think they maybe have presented that. Yeah. Before let me finish. So we realized it wasn't necessarily well received. So we in the planning and environmental management office under Jamie are working some additional concepts. We're not quite fleshed out yet with those, but we are working them. And the roundabout's still on the table, but we are coming up with some other ideas that we feel like could probably address the issue with a little bit less of a dramatic change to that intersection. So hopefully we're still looking at it, so don't worry. We're still analyzing it. That's all the update I have. I know you guys are familiar with the intersection. It's averaging
If you
about.
don't let me speak for long, I'm gonna bust.
Okay, all right, please. By all means.
When I became a commissioner, there was a project proposed by DOT out at the corner of East End Road and 100 in San Mateo, and it was basically what this is here, a roundabout. After multiple meetings with the residents and them threatening to tar and feather me in my own front yard, we decided that it would be best to try to move away from that roundabout concept, and we put in what they have now, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Kudos to DOT. That made that intersection safe, easy to get in and out of. It's perfect. I am not a roundabout guy, especially on a major thoroughfare road like that. I think that's the biggest mess up that DOT ever did down there south of Bunnell on the 4-lane highway, where they make you, the only good thing about that is they did give you a way to not have to go through the roundabout. They gave you a bypass route. I don't see any bypass routes on this one, so you got to basically go through the roundabout. So semis and truck traffic and motorhomes and what have you, these roundabouts give them hell. The one going out of D-Land on 44, I believe it is, if you're in any kind of a larger vehicle, even a longer trailer or whatever, it is hard to get in and out of that section of the road. So when you're looking at this, would you please take a lot of consideration and put it into 4-laning that intersection and just leaving the roundabout out? That's what the issues are. If somebody wants to turn left going out or turn left coming back in, they got to sit in the middle of the road until traffic will allow them to turn. But if you just gave them a turn lane going in, and the same way, not to the extent, but the same way coming in on 315, if you could figure out a way to give them at least a turn lane to turn and go left there, then I think it would eliminate the problems. I go through this intersection all the time and think about, wow, if there was ever a place on earth that needed turn lanes, this is the intersection right here. Because you come up over that hill and you go down, and if you're in a big vehicle, then and you're speeding, which you shouldn't, but if you're speeding when you come over that hill, it's not easy to stop whether you headed down that hill before you get to that intersection. But if you had a way for those people to get out of your way, you'd be fine. So I just really, truly hope y'all would look at some other issues other than a roundabout in that intersection.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So rest assured, we were also involved in the East End project in San Mateo,
Right.
and we intervened when we started hearing the feedback, and we came up with a solution that's a lot simpler, honestly, at that location, and it works, and I think that's the same approach we're taking here.
Oh, it's perfect. I live on East End Road.
Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
that was such a great upgrade. I just can't tout enough how great that is.
Yeah.
And I think we could make this one just as great without a roundabout solution.
We appreciate that feedback, yeah, and we are looking at some other alternatives. I will say that, the tools we use for traffic analysis and safety analysis, they're not necessarily taken into account the grade that's coming in, the horizontal and vertical curves that you're dealing with at this location. And so I think once you really start to take the practical look at it, you come up with ideas that maybe aren't as dramatic for the intersection. And that's kind of the route we're going.
Well, I've even thought more dramatic, frankly. I mean,
Okay.
Representative Payne and I even talked an overpass there, but the cost of that would be horrendous. But truly, when I get to that intersection going north, I turn to the east, go down to the next road, turn back to the left, and then I can, because my life's more important than, because I'm telling you, all of a sudden you're in the middle and you don't notice somebody coming down that hill at a high rate of speed. It's scary. It really is. But I appreciate y'all looking at it. That's the main thing, is that it's on the radar of FDOT, and because 100 is a very dangerous road from, well, I say from that intersection back to Palaca, but
Without a doubt.
I agree.
Without a doubt.
it is. It's scary. Mr. Adamczak, you had a comment?
Yeah, I like everything that was discussed here. The key thing is to get those people turning left off both directions off of 100. But also the other thing is the people turning right off of 315 from either side.
Correct.
So that whole, instead of a roundabout, have a 3-lane always, kind of just for that right turn person to get them cleared out. And then if you're going to make a roundabout, the other thing is there's a visual issue going up the hill as well. And part of that's on the county, I think, and part of that's on the state. But there's purely like a wall of bushes going up. And I travel this almost every day of my life, and State Road 100 scares the crap out of me, to be honest with you, and I do everything I can to avoid it, exactly like he said, from that intersection all the way east. I do take it out the other direction fairly regularly. But yeah, I support what everyone just said. And as long as we have some sort of turnout to turn right off of 315 in both directions.
Absolutely. We appreciate this feedback. There's some low-hanging fruit type projects that we can implement immediately, and some of these other ones there's a process that we got to work through. And so be patient with us. It's on our radar. We'll continue to update you all. And as this thing progresses, hopefully we get a solution that works for.
David, like the chairman said, the most important thing is that you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And this is definitely an area that needs to be looked at. There's no doubt about it. But man, I implore you not to put a roundabout there. I think people coming over that hill are gonna hit that thing and jump over it and just keep on going, and then they can't stop sometimes, the bigger trucks, so.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Wilkinson?
David, thank you for looking into this, for your team. I definitely agree that with Commissioner Turner, that a turn-in lane would probably be the best option. And just to let you know, there was a big movement a couple years ago, and people went out and got petitions, and I mean, in like overnight, they had 500 signatures of wanting to get this intersection. They wanted a red light, and they didn't understand that you can't put a red light when you're coming down a hill at 60 miles an hour in a semi-truck. That just doesn't work. It's not safe. So the fact that you're looking into this and that you're trying to come up with a solution, again, I'm going to make my fellow colleagues and say thank you for trying to get something done there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that petition really spurred our traffic ops team into
Yeah.
action. This report I'm reading from them was October of 2023, so it's fairly recent. But again, we're taking a fresh look at it with this feedback, and hopefully we come up with some good solutions that we can implement here.
Sure. Thank you.
Comments from staff, any? No? Okay, good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it so much. All right, Jamie, you're back up again.
Yeah, two last items. Of course, Paul, at your discretion, if you want to come up and give an update. I know the last time we met with staff, we talked about low bid design, build, delivery. And to give you all kind of a where we stand today, we're piloting our first ever low bid design, build, delivery with Dixie County currently. It's still early, and I say this, it's hard to really lay out the roadmap until you get through the full pilot delivery. But absolutely, if there's an interest with Putnam County, it's just a matter of if you want to be pilot number 2, it's definitely an opportunity. As far as our resources, of course, y'all know Paul, Paul from local program, but Paul's team is ultimately providing that oversight. We do DOT. We have a pretty profound history of as far as that type of delivery. And really, to put it in a nutshell, what is low bid design, build, delivery? In the conventional design bid build approach, you hire a consultant. The consultant spends 9 months to a year, depending on the nature of the project. Then you advertise it. A contractor comes on board, with CEO and oversight inspection. The ideal here is you hire what you call an owner's rep early, and the owner's rep establishes a request for proposals, basically gives requirements of what is intended of you as an agency to be delivered by a contractor. Contractor bids, low bid, and then they bid in compliance with, they're going to meet these terms. And then they hire a designer. So everything's front loaded. So really it's the argument of the value of $1 today versus $1 tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You're getting a contractor on board early in the process, considering inflation. There is some price guarantee there, some opportunity on the front end. So it's, in the end, the goal is to get to the same product, just a different mechanism of delivery. We highly encourage the right projects. As you can imagine, a complex bridge project or culvert replacements, those things they're too profound. There's too much gray, and you want to be very specific. But with a mill and resurfacing project, which is traditionally the SCOP and scrap project format, they do tend to align very well with that delivery approach. So once again, I can't show this is perfectly how, knowing this is unique to local agencies versus the way DOT manages it. We absolutely have a project that's, I'd say probably 50% through the process.
Yeah, they're working on RFP development and advertisement.
Jamie, can he come?
Yeah.
Paul, can you come up to the microphone? Or you can.
Is it working? Hello? Okay, so yes, we're currently for the Dixie County pilot low bid design build. We're working with the owner's rep. They're working on preparing all the necessary documents for the RFP development, and it's expected to advertise hopefully by later the end of this year, summer, fall-ish time frame. They hope to have that RFP advertisement out. So it's still pretty early on, as Jamie mentioned.
What project is that in Dixie? Is that a resurfacing project? Or?
It is a resurfacing project. I'm probably going to butcher, it's either it's the road from Swanee from 340.
It's about a 12-mile resurfacing.
Yeah, 11, 12 mile-ish
Wow.
road resurfacing. It ends, I think there's I know y'all don't know much about it. There's a pavement joint middle ways, and it goes all the way to the town of Swanee. I forget which county road. It's 349 or 341.
Just wanted to present the opportunity. I know I've had several locals that have reached out, inquisitive, and I wish in a year from now, Paul's team will absolutely have the perfect, this is how delivery goes. But right now, because we're still in that pilot stage, and knowing we've got a lot of other folks around the state that are watching us, to see how delivery goes, and if it works, it works. I'll say this, and I know the market's always changed, but we've got, David, I think we got 11 or 12 low bid design build DOT deliveries going right now, and on average, we've seen a 25% savings in the bid alone. And then on the design fee, you're just paying a owner's rep to develop an RFP. So we've had some projects where we're $3 million for design fees, and we're doing it for 800,000, million kind of range. So there's a substantial savings on the front end, potentially on the back end with the bid, and then it's the price guarantee of getting a contractor on earlier. So that's the short quote premise of it. But just wanted to have Paul here, have him available if you wanted to explore it further. Obviously, staff knows Paul, and we'll definitely support you all in any way.
Mr. Drigger, Mr. Turner has a question.
Are you done with that subject? Before I lose you today, I'd like to mention the project that I got the email on not too long ago about the Highway 17 from Dunn's Creek to Satsuma. I understand that they're in the design stage, that we found some site issues and some of the roadways that weren't conducive to building a highway over them, and so because of the added expense, they had to basically take a year 24 project, which was scheduled for this year, and defer it back to 28 until some additional funding was necessary. Is it possible, while we're looking at that we could see if the muck layers could be surcharged, or it could be something that would, the muck's been there, it's not like it was put there, it's been there 1,000 years, and it hasn't really, a million years, and it hasn't really affected the current roadway very much there, so I'm not very good at talking around the issues, and so I've got to be kind of blunt about it. I don't know that maybe we couldn't find a second opinion in here, that maybe there was a lower cost alternative to getting that road built that would be closer to the funding level, where maybe we didn't have to defer it quite so far down the road if we could find another option, such as surcharging or the boring of the holes and putting the concrete in, or or something other than just driving 100-foot piles all the way around the corner, or whatever it may be. And I understand completely that you have to work within your perimeters, but if we could please try to take another look at that. That is a very important section of road that Putnam County's worked on my entire adult life to try to get it 4-laned all the way down to Satsuma once we have the bridge in now that we do. So maybe if we could find a way to move that up, that would be just wonderful.
Absolutely, and I can actually, I'll share with the commission all of the alternatives that were explored. In the end, we ultimately resolved to building a bridge. The reason being the muck, the depth is always a problem when you try to do cutouts. Just the maintenance of traffic to build the new road is so profound. The columns, unfortunately, you're constrained by the length of embedment, and then surcharging, just the amount of time it would take. But at a minimum, we're moving forward with a bridge option. But I can give you, we've got a full geotechnical study where we've looked at all the different alternative scenarios, and it talks about pros and cons in each. We do absolutely intend to bring the project back in. Unfortunately, that was a late discovery, of how substantial that muck pocket layer was, and it forced us into a situation that we've got to push it out to assess. But now that we know we have more field investigation data, we can make informed decisions, and what's cost effective and most, for the long term longevity of the road is ultimately our goal, and we'll try to bring the project back in if we can.
What are the confines of the muck? Is it too vast to be able to just reroute the road and go around it?
Yes, it's the issue of we have to containment as far as what's in our right of way. But if we over excavate or we go too far, we can induce problems to others, outside of our right of way footprint. So we have to consider options that we can control and we can condense. And I am not a geotechnical engineer, I'll tell you that, but I actually give you a report. It really, it's multi layers of thought and process, and I know, like I say, the immediate was, we pushed it to 28. That was just to give us time, the amount of time it takes to design a bridge, lay out a bridge. Believe it or not, a bridge option was the cheapest of the options. I don't want to say cheapest in the sense of lifespan. A bridge is going to give you that full life, but in a comparative analysis and impacts to the commuting public, it was the less impactful of the options that were explored and the most cost effective.
Well, just anything you can do to move it up, please do.
Absolutely. No, we totally understand. We hear it loud and clear.
Mr. Adams, that?
I guess-
Mr. Pickens, hang on a second.
Okay, along those lines, I know it's going to go to 309. Do you get any idea of what will happen and when going from 309 into Pomona Park? And there's a similar situation just past 309 headed to Pomona Park. That's a gorge in there. Have y'all done any investigating there?
In the long-term planning perspective, yes, we have looked, as opportunities going further south. I would highly encourage and that's part of the reason we're here today. I would highly encourage those types of requests, for us to continue. Keep it on the radar, considering that everybody's vying for opportunity. But yes, we have looked at a long-term planning perspective, but that's long-term planning. If there's an immediate, desire of the board for us to bring it back, refresh, and continue to look and monitor, we can actually do that and give you updates on whatever frequency you would like.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So do you need a letter from us that basically we want to continue looking at 17 from Dunn's Creek all the way down to the county line?
Yes, I hope, of course, I've got one more topic, but I'm hoping at the end of this, maybe you can condense one request that would cover the US 17 support, the 17, capacity extension south, and then the very last thing I've got is...
Mr. Adams has a comment. Okay, go ahead, Chief.
The very last thing is just, and of course, to put it in perspective, and this is, there's two paths within DOT, within our organization. There's, traditional DOT projects that are sponsored based on community interest or, desire of the board to look at specific locations. There's also the off-system programs, SCOP, SCRAP, SIGP, TRIP programs that y'all are very familiar with, and those programs are solicited through Mr. Webb's office, and it is very specific in timing. There's a period of solicitation, there's a closure period. Very, very specific. That's off-system. On-system is a little unique. And that's what I want to be here today, to really, really bring home is a formal request of the board. Let's say you want us to do a study, or if you want us to look at something specific. I say that understanding resources is the resources you all have are thin, the same with us, but we want to at least have a prioritization from our commissions and staff of what we need to be focused on. Everything we do, we want to be fully transparent. We want to make sure that we're shooting at the same target. So with that, if there are opportunities, whether it be studies, studies are the impetus of driving to that next big move. It may not be a fires on, scenarios like we presented today that you got to do something now, but it may be that long-term planning objective. And I would just ask the board for consideration if you would rank out things that you want us to take a look at. Doesn't matter where it's at. It just needs to be, the biggest challenge we have is, difference of opinion on what the priorities are. Obviously, we want that solicitation, that request to come through the board so it'd be, vetted. But formally, as you provide that letter of support for 17, as well as the, looking further capacity extension on 17, if you have specific areas that you would like for us to focus, invest some resources in outside of the SCOP and SCRAP and SIGP solicitation for own system improvements, you just have to formally make that request, and we can do that. And once again, at the same frequency, I'm hoping in the future, and that's why I brought so many folks, just because I want to, understand it takes a team, and because we cover so much ground. But if there are specific projects you want more frequent updates, at a minimum, I'd like to come back in the spring and the fall if you found this useful, so that we can, new items come up, we can give you a status update. Or at that time, priorities, we understand things change. All it takes is, act of Mother Nature or some unfortunate circumstance, and it can change the prioritizations, and we can adapt to that as well. So that was more or less my closing. Just say, hey, if there's something you want us to dive a little deeper on that we haven't talked about today, knowing me and Canada, there's probably another 15 items in Putnam County that we're working. We didn't want to overwhelm, today's opportunity, but we definitely wanted to put it out there that we are big on customer service. Any one of you have access to us, as well as staff. We want to make sure that y'all understand that, know that we're committed, and we're here for that purpose. And with that, I'll hush, and if you have any more questions or any other projects you want to talk about.
Mr. Adams has a question. I got a few.
So I guess my County Road State Road 20, when you go to West Putnam, the new area that they built, my biggest thing, I think in hindsight's great, right? Because you designed it based on densities of people and stuff on the side roads. But one place that I think we kind of missed the ball, and again, I was a community member at that time going to those meetings, is where our waste area is, where people come in to dump and stuff for our, what do you call it?
Landfill,
It's not the landfill, but the drop-off for landfill
collection center.
has no means to turn left. So all these people with trailers and other things are going past Hickory, turning, coming back around, and it's causing a weird traffic pattern there. And we really should look into having a turn lane coming from west to east for people to get down Hickory, because that, even though there is no houses back there, that's like a main traffic place for people to take their garbage and refuse for all of West Putnam. So it is the only location to drop off. So I'd like for us to consider a turnoff there. And then the other question I have is from a lighting perspective. What is I guess the question is, and it's throughout the county really on state roads, but what is the state's stance on not stoplights, actual lights to light intersections? Because
Overhead lights.
overhead lights,
Yeah.
right? Because like there's some key areas from the city of Plaquemine out on 20, and it starts at probably Hollister Road, which may have one actually, Hollister Church Road. One that stands out to me big time is Baden Powell, because that actually gets very confusing the way that it's lit, especially in that twilight hours when Dollar General has their sign on. You're coming up that road and you're going to turn left or right, and that actually shines on that whole intersection strangely, where you can't see well for where the roads are to the left and right because of the way that that hill comes up. And then Gordon Chapel, those are the main ones, but we need to have some sort of overhead light in some of those intersections. The one to me that stands out most would probably be Gordon Chapel and Baden Powell. That's just because that's where I live, is out there, but that's where I've gotten the most complaints because that's where my neighborhood is. Mm-hmm. And then the other question I've been getting a lot from people recently going to some community meetings out in West Putnam is, why did the trees in the median stop at the Alachua County, Putnam County line?
Well, there's a project on that.
Okay, that's
So,
and I updated them because I did get that feedback like a year and a half ago, but then there's been no action, so I've been starting to get that question again from the same people that asked me a year and a half ago, how come they're not putting trees on our part? So if that is a project, I can continue to tell them that. That's great, but since I have you here, I wanted to know that.
Need to come up with that answer. This is the government. Nothing happens in
No,
a
no,
year.
no, I know, but
No, I think there's $7 million appropriated for shrubbery inside from Alachua County line back towards Interlaken. And that was going to be one of the comments I was going to make. It seems like a lot of money, and Commissioner Amzak, I'm sorry, but I'm not a big fan of all the stuff in the middle of the road. I think the road's a beautiful road, but $7 million I think it might even be more than that. You can look at your 5-year plan.
I can
but
pull the
it's
plan.
quite a
and
bit
give
of
you
money that you've got invested coming up. Speaking, can I
sure.
move forward?
Go ahead.
Okay. We need, when we brought staff up to your office, and I think it was JR and myself and JT and Mr. Suggs. I don't know if Julianne made that trip with us, but, we were talking to you about these timelines. And that's where your boss, Mr. Evans, said he could build a road with a 8-foot level. 4-foot level? Okay, 4-foot level. So that's why design build really started catching our interest. When you look at the shrubbery or the plants on 20 in that period, you explained to us at that time that DOT's fiscal year starts July 1, okay? And so if it's programmed for, let's just say 2025, that means this coming July, that money's available for projects to be used. Now there's some promissory notes that could help us shorten some of that length up. But if we let DOT know that we're ready to go July 1, but usually counties aren't, is what you're referring to. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I think it's important to know that when you see a 2025, it's July 1 of 24. And that's the fiscal year programmed in. So if it's 28, it would be July 1 of 27. So I think it's important to know that going in, that when you look at those things, that's the date that the money's available. Now, normally you said and your staff did, that counties don't draw down that money until March or April because they're getting their planning work done. I think what I have seen since I have been here is that, well, just take, for example, County Road 315 North from 20 to 100. That was programmed back years ago, and we're still trying to get that off the ground. Now, the cost has ballooned. We ran into some issues with it, but we got to try to find a way. We can't keep coming back to DOT with our hat in our hand begging for money, because we realize that you're running out of money too. Your projects are going up in cost. So we got to try to find a way to be prepared to go immediately when that funding comes down. And I think that's very important to drive the cost down. I think if we do that with a design build, because let's face it, on a resurfacing project, what are we talking here? The contractor knows what they're doing. They're ripping the road up at a certain...
Are you talking about scalp and scrap
I
type thing?
am. So we're not talking about building a nuclear bomb here. We're just talking about resurfacing a road and, how much design does it really need and how much preparation,
Go ahead. How much ahead of the date that you just came up with, how far ahead of that would we actually know that we got a scalp or scrap grant?
We know...
We program 3 years ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
We have
programming our,
enough time to do some of the work ahead, is what you're saying.
Well, actually, you program, we put on the radar 5 years. So it's in your 5-year work, but the funding...
we're always building our new third year. So right now, Paul's working the solicitation we received. He's doing the analysis, independent estimate, everything for our fiscal year 28. 29, okay.
Okay.
Even with scalp and scrap?
We try to, we look ahead 3 years. That way it gives everybody time, because we understand these are front-loaded programs where you all pay and then pursue reimbursement. So even as far as your finances, we got to make sure the counties have Aqueduct. Every rural county, has a little different financial perspective, but that's exactly that. I mean, that, you get it 3 years ahead, you could proactively begin planning for, even working with Paul's office, there's some strategies, tips and techniques, things that you can utilize to implement a little quicker as well.
I don't know the number right offhand from County Road 315 from 100 to Marion County line, the 3 segments, but it's in the millions of dollars. I want to say 12 million at least, if it might even be more than that. But we're looking at some roads down in Crescent City that we as a board has sent up to you. That is so important for rural Florida. And as you well know, you hear this all the time, no matter what rural commissioner you're talking to, we don't have that kind of money to go out there and spend that to resurface roads. And it's a really wonderful partnership with DOT and the counties to have that money to be able to spend on rural roads that connect people. I don't know how we would do it without it. I don't think we could possibly do it without it.
And in that vein, which I'm going to add a little plug I didn't think about earlier, but we're looking to maybe in the summer host an event for all of our agencies, essentially an opportunity for staff to come and we've spent the last 4 or 5 years really hitting grants hard as an agency. A lot of lessons learned, built a huge network. We don't see a lot of our rural agencies don't tend, just because of staffing resources, don't tend to, you're focused on SCOP, SCRAP, SIGP, and TRIP when there's all these other opportunities. And actually, that's probably a good segue. I want to talk about the DEP. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but
we
these are
didn't plan
opportunities.
this. Come on.
But the ideal is in the summer, we would host a workshop. We would invite all our rural partners and come. We just tell the story of opportunities. But David's got a very, very good one too.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on what Jamie's saying. So DEP, it's a different state agency, but they have the Resilient Florida Resiliency Grant Program. And so what we're doing, one of the criteria for that program to be eligible is to do a vulnerability asset assessment. And we at DOT have a lot of that resource already available through GIS platforming that we do on other projects. So we're building that for, our rural county partners to take some of that burden off, the bureaucracy of having to do this mapping. And so you get a planning grant. You probably have all received a planning grant from DEP to do this work, to the vulnerability assessment, to make you eligible to go after capital improvement projects for Resilient Florida grant program. And so if we can help get the ball rolling, we've already vetted this information through DEP. So The data that we're developing for Putnam County to utilize has already been vetted through DEP, GIS specialists, and the resiliency folks, and so it's good to go, it's good data, and so you can then hopefully use that planning grant money that you've received from DEP to actually develop capital improvement projects rather than developing these apps and these maps and everything else that are needed to become eligible for that grant program. So that's something we're hoping to have rolled out this month to all the rural county partners that we're working with. So you guys are on the docket. We're working hard to develop that material, and as soon as we get that ready, we'll reconvene and hand it off and let you ultimately pursue, and your staff pursue that grant funding. Hopefully, we selfishly want to see some of these capital improvement projects awarded in these rural areas. What we're seeing currently, again, it's a different agency than DOT, but a lot of this grant money is going down to Miami-Dade, St. Johns County, these areas that have dedicated resiliency staff. They're big metropolitan areas on the coast. And so what we want to see, I mean, you guys are suffering the impacts of these storms just like everyone else, or isolated flooding or other flooding issues, is we want to get some of those capital improvement dollars in our region, in the rural areas. And I think, we're committed as an agency to partner with DEP and partner with our county representation to get these projects brought to life through a different, funding opportunity that's outside of DOT. So it's a little bit different, but stay tuned. We are going to have that resource available hopefully this month to hand off to you all to utilize however you want.
Thank you. That's exciting.
We talked about a vulnerability study when I first came on board. Where do we have that already? Are we working with their agency for a vulnerability study, or is that something we sent out, or?
I think we did that.
I just remember it came up, and then I just don't remember seeing anything on it.
I know we're working a vulnerability study in that Willaca, Duns Creek area through emergency management. But they've had several meetings with several agencies on. I can get you an update on that.
Okay, so it's not countywide. It was specific to certain areas.
Specific to some flood-prone areas around Duns Creek, Willaca, Cedar Creek out in Boswick. There was a map that was generated that showed the high vulnerability areas that Steph has been working with the state agencies on. So I know they've got a vulnerability study. I think Mayor Watts has actually got in for one in that Willaca, Sportsman's Harbor area. So I mean, there is several of the vulnerability studies working in the coastal areas of the county around the rivers.
For timing perspective, and just put in perspective, this is a $250 million program. The only rural agency that has been awarded a grant in the last 2 years was the city of Greenville in Madison County. That's what has caught David and I's attention. We are competitive, and we want to help foster and promote in any way of that we can. So, but if you're curious on the timing perspective, if you go to DEP Resilient, just type in DEP Resilient Florida, and they actually have a portal where you can see the planning grants awarded. The planning grant serves specifically to address that vulnerability assessment. From a timing sense, this applications are due in September. Seems like a lot of time, but you've got to do community outreach. You've got to do the GIS inundation layers. You've got to do a formal public engagement. You've got to develop an application, and you've got to do a benefit cost analysis. Those things take time. But once again, the opportunity that David's presented is we're willing to help. We can't do it for you, but we can create templates, and templates that can be shared universally with all of our agencies. So we're definitely trying to get the gun loaded. We just need the next step of partnership is really what we're offering today.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to take this opportunity to bring up a project. So the intersection of Palmetto Bluff Road and Highway 17 North headed toward Green Cove. So before that, you have the intersection of West River Road and Highway 17, and that has a red light. Then you have the Seminole entrance that you guys presented today, and then past that you have Palmetto Bluff Road. And I think I asked you this in a meeting. The last study that was done for that was 2019. Is there a time frame? Do you only, in other words, if I were to ask for a study to be done, a traffic study now to see if it warrants a red light in that area, is 5 years enough since it was done in 2019, or how often do you do them?
It's typically based on the trigger of an improvement in the area.
Well, that area has definitely been improved, and we're seeing a lot of homes and things going to be built in that area. So I've received lots of phone calls from citizens that are concerned, that feel like they need a red light. And of course, they always compare it to West River Road because they're like, we're the same area. West River Road got a red light and we didn't. They do have a flashing light and it's a lot better than it was, but there are still plenty of accidents out there. And so whatever you can do, whether it's a study or I think the study is the first step, and then see if there's enough issues out there that would warrant a red light.
Okay.
You know,
So that's on my ask list. Thank you.
Mr. Driggers, I know y'all, Mr. Adamsack and I serve on the regional council together up in Jacksonville, so I know that resiliency study is coming. But one thing that, and you have a representative on that board that represents ex officio member that sits there with us. You know, when Commissioner Wilkinson talks about 17 North, and you've heard us talk about our port today, and that's on 17 North. When the Outer Beltway is done, we're 17 minutes from Gustafson-Dairy or the Outer Beltway. We learned just last month that 6,500 homes are going to be built on the Clay County, Putnam County line and the old mining areas back there. You know, that's going to put a big strain. They're not all just going to go back to Green Cove Springs. They're going to come to here. And, you know, I think they found us, if you will. We have rural lands and people have found us, and it creates a lot of challenges. So again, I'm tickled to death that you're here and the projects that are going on. I know they're expensive. I appreciate the fact that you bring projects that we're not competing with you about, because we need to be able to compete with, you know, to get our own. But just keep mindful of that Putnam County in the next 20 years is going to look a lot different probably than what it looks like today. But if we can build the roads, which we've already done, 20 is remarkable. I will tell you that. 207 is fantastic. 17 is getting better. 19 is still a little slow, but you got the forest, so we're okay with that. But 17 South is going to be, and 100. 100 West from Palaca. That is a booger right there, and it's a booger all the way to Stark, if you will, you know. But that's a long-term project. But you know, we need some help on that. So.
That a technical term, booger?
Yeah, we wonder, that's the word of the day.
It's a Barton booger technical term. Okay, so.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, you knew it. So, anything else, Mr. Driggers?
No, sir.
Did we give you everything you needed today?
Absolutely. The honesty is we wanted to try to keep it as informal and honest dialogue as we could. Once again, if you want us to come back at whatever frequency, if you want us to target other projects or other things we didn't bring up that you want to hear more about, we're absolutely open to do that. We can brief staff and they can share, or we can come in person. It doesn't matter, whatever the preference
I think
is.
this board would be glad to see you anytime you want to come, and any situations you want to bring to us. You know, we do appreciate the working relationship, and it goes back a long way. So, you know, I remember back in 1999, Kelly Smith, Huey Hawkins, with John Stevenson. It was not from, yeah, I believe we walked State Road 20 and talked about what it would look like for Interlaken. And, you know, now it's finally happened. I mean, we talked about getting land. That happened recently. And I don't know if you've been out that way, but the town mowed all that property and cleaned it up. And it looks wonderful. And we appreciate but that was government moving very fast at that time. So
I do have one more question.
Go right ahead,
I'm
Commissioner.
sorry. I saw that in your work plan, you have the rest of the money, I believe, to finish the bike path in Putnam County. Does that fall under your purview, or is that a different group?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Miss Amy Robertson that's in our office.
Yes, we met her.
Yeah, I can ask her to reach out to you. I'm not as directly familiar, but I know we were very fortunate. This year, the legislature expanded the Sun Trail and the TA programs. I think the TA program statewide went up maybe $30 million, and Sun Trail was $165 million. We were able to advance $65 million of projects into our current year, and we were just given additional $17 million here 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So we've been very aggressive with trails. So that's why
Yeah.
I don't know offhand, but I can definitely pull it up and verify
We'll
that.
see I'll reach out to Amy and see if she can maybe come to one of our meetings and give us an update. We'd like to see, you know, what's going on with that. There is some gaps in there, but I think you guys are funded for it. So the question just becomes, when is it going to happen?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome back anytime. If any other commissioners have comments, staff, do you have any comment? Jamie, thank you. We're going to take a 3-minute recess.
Thank
Thank you.
try to get out of here by noon. We got a few more topics. Next, I appreciate FDOT coming. It was a very good presentation and very good interaction. Again, I want to remind everybody that I'm looking at the 3 to 5 year plan here. The next item is item C, new Parks and Recreation building and redesign. Looking at that area, if you will, we still have those portables there. And I think one day we need to be looking at a new building over on the south side of that property or wherever, and make that a better facility for our workers out there and for the public to be able to utilize maybe more of that area. So just want to throw that out and get some comments on that.
I don't disagree. I just, we really don't have a capital improvement plan, I guess. So this is one of those things that would go in our 5-year work plan if we want to or whatever, but we definitely need to have some kind of a future thought process in funding, how we're going to fund it.
Okay. Next item in public
Wait a
work.
minute,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Light's not
I got my lights.
Your
Oh,
whole
it-
board's lit up.
Oh,
there,
I'm
Mr.
sorry. I
Chairman.
didn't- Mr. Pickens, and then we'll go to Mr. Adams. I'm sorry.
There's a little screen that's in front of you that has there.
But it wasn't
and it's
working.
act- excuse me, and it's
some of them were unplugged
Okay.
earlier.
And it's actually working. So I don't disagree. I've only been in that building a couple of times, but it would be a pretty expensive venture. So there's no question we probably need to start looking at it within 5 years of a capital plan, like Commissioner Wilkinson said. So
Good. I think it's needed. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, so I think the buildings are ugly, but I think they are adequate for the use. But I think we should in this 5-year plan, and part of it is getting the property moved out of the port to the county and all that. But I think that area with the usage increases and other things may be more suitable to parking and other things for future growth of parks activity and moving Parks and Rec maybe into other parts of the building, which I think of this area or another part of the county. I mean, I think that may be something we may want to consider too, because that park continues to just grow and grow and have greater activities, and that's where the population is going to grow. I think we need to gear everything on that property we can, in my vision of a 5-year plan, to be around the activities that are going to happen there, the public activities, and take the administrative type thing out of there potentially to allow for parking, more courts, more venues to do activities. Just something to think about when we're thinking about that, not just to throw a building up for the sake of building a building.
Go ahead, since it's working.
Well, it is
Yeah,
working.
it's working.
But it says Larry Harvey up
Well,
there
they're gonna
on your
fix that.
screen.
Mr.
I am
Ritchie-
not Larry Harvey.
Mr. Ritchie just said he's going to fix it.
No, we're good. I don't disagree with anything that's been said today, and it's something that probably needs to be looked at, but I agree with Commissioner Adams' act here is that's premium recreation space out at Theobald Park. I'm not sure we don't need to start looking around and finding maybe a place that's a little better to put something than right there in the premium recreation area of the county. So I think that's something that should be looked at, and I appreciate the discussion on this today, but priorities, Mr. Chairman, we have some priorities that probably rank a little higher up the list than this one, but it's time to start looking at it for sure. Thank you.
Mr. Pickens, your light's on, please.
yeah, and I agree with that. It is prime space out there, and you know, when we arrived here 7 years ago, we were a little strapped for funds. We're a little better now, so I think the focus of the board and the Parks and Recs advisory committee and Julianne and the staff were to upgrade parks, and we've done a real good job doing that. But you know, definitely looking forward in the future with this is probably something that should be on the list.
You know, I totally agree with that, but, you know, it kind of boils down to one of those situations that do we take, and I don't want to throw out crazy numbers, but do we take $500,000, because you can't build much for less than that anymore, do we take that and put in that, or do we take that $500,000 and put Parks and Rec in a building somewhere that we already own, and take that $500,000 and finish some of the park projects that some of us have been fighting on the whole 6 years we've been here? So.
Good point.
So there's
Well.
other ways to look at this also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's good. I think that's good, and I think we can, as long as it's on the radar and we can move forward, then we're good with that, and I agree with that. Public Works, building renovation, we talked about that a little bit, did with some staff members, and
Do we have some numbers on what the renovations, so could we just go ahead and authorize them to try to get us a small design fee of some kind and see if they couldn't come up with what they're looking for and find out what it is we can do to make the existing building more conducive to the larger staff that they have, you know, and the engineers and everything else? I mean, it's really not great at the moment. I mean, they've got some of their people all the way out back, which they probably like being out there, some of them. So I don't know, maybe we could let JR and JT have some design money and get with whoever they're going to use that does their building design and see if they can't come up with something, or at least a budget number before we fully design, get a budget number on what the estimated cost would be. Then we know what we're talking about.
JR?
That's a great idea. I mean, we've got a big division, and especially over there, a big division in staff where the engineering's on the back of an old warehouse, which is fine, but sometimes it's just amenities is the light of day, right? I mean, when they built that in there, they built a office space inside of a warehouse. So I think that's great. I mean, we'll absolutely look at it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the building itself. It's just kind of the way it's designed and laid out. We can absolutely take a look at it and see if we can bring a design idea back to the board.
And you'll do that in the next few months, possibly?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. All right, then we'll move on to the next item, animal service, groundbreaking. And we've talked about seeking our site work partners. Just want to make sure that we're all on board with that before we go out there. We do have some of our dirt work contractors that want to help. And what time frame are we looking at? I think that's what's been asked of me. So, Julianne, would you like to take that maybe of what an anticipated date might look like that we might start seeing dirt being moved, that we could ask these guys if they want to participate at some level?
I don't know that I can give you an exact date at this time.
That's fine, that's
We have bi-weekly facility update meetings with the contractor, the engineer, and staff. That being said, the parcel is in the city of Palatka, and so we have some inquiries into the city of Palatka that we're going to need some clarification on. That's going to, at this point, could be a predicator of the timeline that we're in.
Have we, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Have we done core borings on the new spot where we moved it over there by the lime rock?
We have not to date. The contractor has not requested them to date.
I don't know that he will request them. It's not usually within his purview. Basically, you tell him to go build it right there, and then he does it, and you usually do your own site investigations and whatever to see if that's where you want it. Because I know for a fact that there have been some issues in some of that area. When we built the jail, for instance, the latest renovations to the jail, there was some serious site work issues there that we had to work through. I don't think they go over to that area, but I think the next step in this process, now that we voted to move from out in the pasture to inside the jail compound, I think the next step is for us to pony up and go on and get some core borings done in that area, and they need to be done deeper than the normal 10 to 15 feet that you would get, because if we've got some, we just need to know, was that area of the site filled in? The stuff over on the backside was filled in, and that's where the problem lied. If there had been a muck layer way down that was 1 million years old, it wouldn't have been an issue. Just like they tried to make it an issue at the fire station in East Palatka, so they made us surcharge that site. We surcharged the site. It went 30 days and didn't move 1/8 of an inch in 30 days, and they said, oh yeah, well, I guess you're okay. Well, some of us could have told them that before we wasted the $20,000 surcharge in the site. I just would like to know, somebody in authority or one of your engineers, somebody needs to know what is under the ground in that area that we're going to build this. So it needs to go down to like at least 30 feet deep. And if they go through 30 feet and they find out that it's still a filled-in area, which I doubt very seriously that it's deeper than that on any kind of fill, that we need to be able to authorize them to go deeper until they find out where we reach solid ground at, if it's filled in. I just don't know if that area is filled or not. So we need to do that next, because if we find out that the site's unsuitable and we've got to move it back into the pasture because it costs more, we've moved it up there in order to save money on the utility connections and what have you. If it's gonna cost more money and the parking lot because the line was there, for a lot of good reasons, but if it turns out that it's a bad site selection because of the soil where the building's gonna go, we may need to get it checked where out in the pasture and go back to the first decision that we made just because of that. So my suggestion would be the next step, we go on and do core borings in the area where this is gonna happen. And then I guess we're gonna talk to the city to find out, can we build an animal shelter on that complex?
I don't think the question is if, but the city in that area, obviously, the building department still does building, but they run planning and zoning, and so they've had some turnover in their planning division, and we just need some information from them. I think they're trying to help us work through that now.
Okay. Well, before we take 3 or 4 months and go, if it turns out we need to go through a zoning process at the city and change something or whatever the case may be, before we do that, can we get core borings? Because the last thing we want to do is hold off 4 months and find out the site's not suitable.
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you.
We'll get the core barn ordered this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, okay, never mind. I'm sure we got, okay, so I guess I'm scratching my head too, along with Commissioner Turner. Is this going to be a big problem with the city? Or are we going to try to, or do we think that it's going to be something that, I mean, because gosh, I've been here 9 years and we're ready to move forward now. Jonathan, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. Commissioners, Jonathan Griffith, Assistant City Manager. Myself, Mr. Helms, Mr. Baker met with your civil engineer last week and one of our planners. We gave them the site plan checklist and they're working on a site plan for submittal. So, no.
Okay, thank you. Gosh, that made me have a heart attack there. All right, thank you all so much. Lord of mercy. That's all I have. Does anybody else have anything? Because we're going to go down to the county attorney, and county attorney's not in there. County administrator, Mr. Suggs?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Turner.
Mr. Chairman, yes. On your last item, when we're going to ground break, we did discuss that, but we had a site work partner thing. Can we resolve that if site work partners want to come and get involved, they can, but we don't hold the project up waiting on volunteers to do this? If we can do the site work or what, I mean, sometimes it costs more to use volunteers than it just, to just go on and do it.
Well,
so
weren't we going to do that in-house anyway? JR, weren't we going to bring public?
Yeah, site work is to be done in-house.
Yeah, I can appreciate all that. Is it possible to get them to do the site work following the building so we can stay on pace with it? I mean, there's going to be some final grade stuff, amenities that need to be done outside, but I think at some point we need to, if we're going to move this project and continue to move it forward, we need to take this, for no better term, to bull by the horns and let the contractor and all that stuff get this thing up and rolling. But I mean, there's a lot of final grade out work that needs to be done once the buildings are complete.
I don't disagree. I think they just reached out one time, 2 of them did to me and said, I want to be a part of the solution, and we sure want that to happen. So,
I appreciate that, I really do, and I appreciate them coming forward, but JR is exactly right.
Yeah,
If
let's
we
go.
don't, we need to go on and move this project, and then we'll let them participate in the final site grading and the getting ready and the, those sort of things that are not critical to getting in the critical path to get the building started and keep it moving. So we need to let JR go on and take Public Works and take that done. Once we get core borings and the city gives us the approvals we need to go on and get this thing moving.
We just got the approval we need.
No, sir, that
I
was
know.
not the approval. That
I
was
know.
very nice of him to say that, but it just says we're well on the way. and
Yes, sir, I
He
agree.
doesn't see anything. is what-
Right, I agree.
Not trying to put anything in your mouth, Jonathan,
How
but
long do you think these core borings are going to take to get back to us?
I'll have you an answer sometime later today or tomorrow. I've got to see, because I mean, we got to make an appointment with the people that actually do the core borings, but we have some that are on continuing services with us, so it's not an issue.
That's fine. It doesn't have to be that fast, but I think we're all ready to see that happening. Any more discussion on item E? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go to our county attorney. He's not sitting there. Whoops, Mr. Turner.
when you get your core borings, would you give them to Scott Knowles and let him review them, please, sir?
Yes, sir. I was
Just
actually going to have him
review.
do the ordering to get them done, so yes, sir, we sure will.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
you're fine. You're fine. I appreciate it. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, sir, and I didn't know if you were going to do this, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to take the opportunity as county administrator to welcome new city manager, Mr. Bell, here today.
Yeah.
And so I've already given him my business card, so he has my contact information, and I'm sure we'll start working together and communicating on whatever projects that the city and the county may have today as well as in the future.
Mayor, would you like to bring him up and introduce him? Okay, come on up. And I appreciate that. Thank you. I should have said which mayor, but
It's all okay.
I kind of figured everybody would
respond
know.
anyway.
Everybody would know what mayor, but hey.
Yeah, welcome to Mr. Troy Bell, to the city of Palaca as our new city manager, and we're happy that we have somebody on board, and we're ready to move forward.
Good.
I don't know if you want to say anything or tell me a
Please.
little bit about you, or quickly?
Quickly
Quick.
say thank you to the mayor, because I am nothing without my mayor and commission, of course. And I'm excited to be here, and I really look forward to an opportunity to meet each of you and get to know you and work together. So I hope this is an excellent opportunity and platform for us to be able to do that. And I appreciate Mr. Suggs coming and connecting with me, and we're setting up some time to get together and begin that process. So I'm excited.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Mr. Suggs, you still have the floor?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, good. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Adamczak.
I have none.
Mr. Turner?
I have nothing to add.
Mr. Pickens?
I just want to thank you for putting together this workshop and bringing DOT down. It's always good to have them. And with the updates, they've been very good to Putnam County over the last few years. So just thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson?
I have none other than just to agree with Commissioner Pickens. Thank you.
And thank you all for allowing me to do this and participating. It's been a great day, I think, so far. Any public comment on miscellaneous items? Does the public like to speak? We thank everyone for coming today, and we really greatly appreciate it. But seeing no public running up to the microphone, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.